hello, welcome everybody. This is day 4, I think. I hope so. This is day 4 of our 16x book club challenge with myself and Dee, just waiting for Dee to get on live. I'll just give a bit of an introduction. This book, 16x, is based on the 80-20 principle. And what it does is it shows, or it comes out of, if you focus on the 80% of, hang on, just here. Hello, everybody. But yeah, welcome to day 4. Hang on, something strange is happening. Are you live? Oh, okay, perfect.
I am.
Hey, so I was
Hello.
just giving an introduction. This day 4 today, right? Hello, Shalin.
Yeah, it is day 4, isn't it?
Yeah. So day 4 of our 16x book club challenge, you can achieve breakthrough performance. That's what this book is all about across all areas based on the 80-20 principle, that 20% of your efforts can lead to 80% of your results. And so welcome everyone. Great to have all of you here. Today we are going to be discussing, sharing our takeaways and actions, if we're going to do any, on chapter 5. Defy the tyranny of routine. Just before we get into that, maybe Dee and I can take a moment to share from yesterday's chapter 4, which was focus. Is there anything you wanted to share about this, Dee? About maybe if something changed?
Nothing changed, but I think, just this idea of like relentless focus and keeping things simple, hit me really hard yesterday. And I keep
Mm-hmm.
thinking now, every single day, how do I make sure that there's that relentlessness in keeping things simple and not complicating it? I think it's going to be huge for me. Hey, Shalin. You can just call me D, by the way, because when people call me Deep D or Dip D, I think it's really formal because every time people call me Deepti, I think of my mother getting mad at me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Get mad at me, she's like, Deepti, come here. And, so yeah, but you can just call me D. Yeah, so I think it's going to have a huge impact in the following few weeks and months rather than just today.
Mm-hmm.
It's really seeped into my bone marrow. Gotta make
Mm-hmm.
gotta make sure I'm living it every single day.
Yeah. I actually did have some massive changes. That's why I brought this up.
Oh yeah,
So,
here.
yeah, so yesterday we had a group coaching call with Zion. So the people that don't know Zion, he has multiple 6 and 7 for bigger businesses. He's an entrepreneur. He's also a business coach to 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs who want to quantum leap their businesses. So I was on a call with him and I asked him this question. I said, considering where I'm at this point in my journey for my coaching business, what is it that I should focus on? And I told him specifically what was draining me and what was taking up a lot of my energy. And I said, I've across all these platforms, creating content, engaging, I talked about was being a little draining for me. And what came up was something that I knew intuitively and something that I should have known, but I just forgot about it because over the last few months, as things have been ramping up, my focus shifted away from that. And what he said was, put everything into one channel from a process standpoint and focus on what worked and double, triple down on that. And then I can automate and delegate. And I realized, like, holy shit, I knew that because actually 3 months ago, he said the same thing. But at that point, it didn't land in the same way because I wasn't at the junction that I'm at right now. And it was just a reminder. And because we had read the chapter yesterday on focus, I asked him that question on the call.
Mm.
Um, so that was like an immediate change. And now today I'm just taking a step back and I was like consciously, I'm not going to do too much. I'm just going to take a step back, look at things from a distance, and then reevaluate and decide, okay, as I step back into the things,
Yeah.
specifically, what is it? And it's going to be based on what he told me, as well as whatever else that we discussed and come up with over the last few days. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, very cool. That's amazing. It's amazing. Aren't you glad we're doing this book?
I am so glad. So just for the people that are watching here um, live, first of all, thank you so much for coming and joining. And the thing is, when you reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is super cool. Let's see what to do. And we're literally taking it day by day and we're committing to it. So I just want to share this, like a commitment. And if whoever's watching this, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching a replay, if you're actually going through the process with us and you're reading the book and you're applying it, you will see massive breakthroughs in your performance.
Yeah, for sure. And then, talking about just kind of moving on to the next chapter,
Yeah.
I love this chapter, Defying the Tyranny of Routine. Can I read the intro quote here from Richard Koch?
Yes, please.
You can identify the mass of irrelevant and low value activity and begin to shed this worthless skin. You can isolate the parts of your character, work style, lifestyle, and relationships that measured against the time or energy involved give you value many times greater than the daily grind. And having isolated them, you can, with no little courage and determination, multiply them. You can become a better, more useful, and happier human being, and you can help others do the same. And then he starts the chapter saying, we're all creatures of habit. And that is true because, especially as you get older, and this is very much a correlated thing with age. What I've observed is that even as I moved from my 20s into my 30s, there were some specific habits that had become so ingrained in my psyche, in my psychological structure, that it took me a lot of like evaluation to even observe that they were habits and they were not just ways of being. So I think it really depends on the age and stage you are in life, but I've noticed that these specific routines and habits become far more ingrained as you get older. I have noticed a correlation with age. Just because you've had a longer time on this planet to kind of like play out the same routine over and over again without even realizing it was a routine. An example that I'd say is like I'd wake up and the first thing I do is like after sadhana, I would go straight to have a cup of coffee, which is so acidic for the body. And it actually took me a while to realize that, this is really not serving my body whatsoever. And I had to replace that either with juice or like ragi kanji or something like that. And so that's an example of like a small habit, but that it had just kind of become a tyrannical routine. And it took me a while to like get off that addictive habit. So if you start to do an inventory of all of the routines in your life, you'll see they're just ingrained because somehow you picked it up because you saw your parents doing it, or you kind of picked it up in college, or you were doing things on the go and therefore you picked it up. But regardless, you picked it up from your environment. And now it takes some level of conscious awareness and some inventory to see whether it's serving you and then to letting it go.
Yeah, taking the conscious audit, right? And this is interesting because I think it was maybe yesterday, the day before, I saw Dr. Joe Dispenza post something on Instagram around this. Did you see this? It
No.
was something, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, I think by the time you're 35, 95% of your behaviors and habits and all that kind of stuff are patterns that are like set and that you've picked them up from your environment. So the opportunity here is for us to take a step back, observe, take audit, adjust, and course correct towards what we want to achieve.
Correct. So what was your biggest takeaway from the chapter?
Honestly, I also had something I wanted to read. And it's so habit and routine are the enemies of innovation. I'm going to say that again. Habit and routine are the enemies of innovation. They put boundaries around our performance. Like gravity, they keep us on the ground, stifling our imagination and preventing our lives from soaring to new heights.
It's amazing.
It's just absolutely amazing. And actually reading this chapter, I was having goosebumps this morning.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is so powerful. Because I haven't had a routine for a while. And even doing personality tests over the last few years, like Myers-Briggs, I've always been the type that doesn't, the spontaneous type. I think it's like not the planning one, not the one that likes routines and stuff. I've always been the other side.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I always have fresh thinking and innovative thinking. So it's interesting to find this correlation here. But yeah, like this was my main takeaway. And that habits, habits don't have to be bad to confine our lives into something smaller than what they could be.
Yeah.
Our lives could be so much bigger, but our habits confine us, even if they're not so-called bad habits. And I just, biggest takeaway for me was that habits and routines become limitations
Yeah,
that keep us from achieving greater possibilities. And I think it's a good opportunity to just take a step back. Um, yeah.
exactly. And then he does have another section in the book where, or in that chapter where he talks about this, right? If you want to innovate, you have to start thinking about how you can do things differently.
Yeah.
And but thinking, because most of the thinking that we do is very superficial thinking that doesn't actually contribute to any change, like the everyday thinking, the unconscious thinking.
And it's habitual thinking.
And it's habitual thinking because it was formed by certain paradigms that you have unconsciously accepted. So I love what he says here, which is thinking, real thinking, new thinking, innovative thinking is hard. That's why we rush around doing things, because if we're really busy, we leave ourselves no time to merely think. And make no mistake, thinking can cause us discomfort. Thinking is lonely. Thinking makes us vulnerable. It challenges our sacred cows, exposes us to possible embarrassment and ridicule, subverts our ego and our emotions. Also, when we think about innovation and change, we're in danger of interfering with the preferences or habit patterns of our friends, bosses, colleagues, and loved ones. Even worse, we're in danger of contradicting ourselves or concluding that we're on the wrong path, maybe just going helter skelter in no particular direction in our work or our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another part that I also thought would be good to read. So I'm glad that you also read that, because what it does is it points you to not simply changing your action, but changing the way that you see things so that
Correct.
your actions will change as a result of that. And that's what creates the breakthrough in performance, not in doing more, but in taking a step back from action into thinking and literally changing a paradigm into something totally different, because your actions as a result will change. And I love how he says that, uh, if we are really busy, we leave ourselves no time to merely think. Thinking can cause us discomfort. And this really relates back to both of us doing our sadhana. We sit there, we do our yogas, our meditations, and then that's an opportunity for us to step back, get into a space of expansiveness, and then when we enter back into our world and what we're doing, we do operate from a kind of freshness and a
Yeah.
kind of expansiveness so that we can create possibilities. We are tuning into possibilities rather than being stifled by limitation. So I think that's huge.
And it relates to what we were talking about in the previous chapter, creating white space, but
Yeah.
also create that white space not just through meditation or yoga. You can also create that white space once a week just to sit down and evaluate what are you actually doing and whether what you're doing will produce results, because it'll force you to be in a space where you're thinking and you're applying yourself. Of course, you have to find the tools that work for you. We're
Yeah.
just talking about the tools that work for us. It doesn't mean that the tools that work for us work for you. If your white space is to go out into the woods and go for a walk, or go out into the garden and do gardening, or water your plants, it could be different kinds of white space. But do make the time to have specific white space where you are actually thinking about what it is that you're working on, and you have a compass, that you have a calibrated compass that's taking you in the direction that you want to go in. Because most of
Since
activity is not calibrated. It's just unconscious activity.
Yeah, and since we're on this topic, I'll just share a story of Thomas Edison. I think everyone knows who Thomas Edison is. He's just a famous American inventor and entrepreneur. So I don't know if this is true, but I read it. I'm going to assume it's true. So there's a story of how he would always go fishing every day for like an hour in a boat alone. So somebody came and asked him, like, why are you doing this? And then he said, it's the only time when he gets to be alone and actually think, because otherwise he's always being constantly interrupted. So this is something from his time that he was constantly doing every single day, consciously, because otherwise he wouldn't get the time to think. Because you can imagine if for him, um, entrepreneur, inventor, two very different things. Inventor, you need the time to innovate. You need the time to sit there and experiment and do different things. Entrepreneur means constant interruptions, being trying to do things, but then there's always people coming to him saying, "Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. Oh, how should I do this?" So you're constantly in the mode of making decisions, but at the same time, he's also in the mode where he has to make inventions. So how can you integrate the two, or how can you create a life where you're integrating the two of them? And I think that's what's powerful here, and that's what the power of white space is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything you wanted to share, or should we go ahead and go talk about what's up tomorrow?
Yeah, let's commit.
Okay, so tomorrow's commitment, chapter 6, do it your way. Do it your way. Which is interesting because we just spoke about, I think Dee just mentioned, to find, what works for you. So let's see what comes up tomorrow
Yeah.
as we go through this chapter. Do you want to see what time?
Yeah, I think tomorrow 12:30 could work.
I think it should work for me too. I'm just going to double check. 12:30 your time, right?
Pacific, yeah.
Okay, so basically in like 24-ish hours.
Yeah, 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay, cool, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, 12:30 Pacific time. That's Los Angeles time. 3:30 Eastern time, which is New York time, and this is in the afternoon, of course.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.